everyone. Welcome back to Miss Terry Soaps and Such. We're going to make some spiders. So, as you see here, I'm not putting a lot of instructions up here. So I'm going to talk a lot, which means I'm not going to be able to catch up too much with you. But I will, when there's a moment, I'll try to catch up a little bit and give you a little, just a little info about where I've been and what's going on. So you just saw me put some activated charcoal and some vegetable glycerin into this little teeny cup and stir it up together. Stirs in pretty well, and that's the way I like to disperse my activated charcoal. I did about a teaspoon of each. This is a very small little cup, and so is that cup of soap that is holding about 2.5 ounces of premium crystal clear from Crafter's Choice. I purchased mine at Wholesale Supplies Plus. That is my soap of choice. I'm not sponsored by them, but that is what I like to use, particularly with a clear soap. You could use another type of soap to make black, but it has to be clear. You cannot use goat milk soap or Tussa Silk, anything like that, because you will end up with gray soap. So I'm using the charcoal into dispersing it into this soap, quite a bit of it, because I want it to be very, what's the word? Oh boy, I'm just getting back into this, so y'all have to forgive me. I'm pouring soap everywhere. I'm making messes. I usually am making messes of some kind, but I'm also trying to remember the words of what I used. So my brain's a little fried. I want it to be more saturated. That's not the word I was looking for, but that works. I don't want it to be transparent. Anyway, I'm pouring it into little tiny molds that I got off of Amazon. These are just little small, I think they are molds used for fondant typically, but you certainly, as you can see here, you can use them for soap as well. And I bought them in a little collection of Halloween molds, and I will try to link that in the description box. If you don't know where the description box is or how to find it, it's generally lies right above the comment section. When you're watching YouTube, and it usually says where it says more, you want to click on that. That's very important because a lot of information is put into that box, and you usually want to click on it to see if you're interested in learning more about what I've done here or more about any of the products I've used, stuff like that. And particularly today, because I'm not putting text up like I like to do, but it's really time consuming. And I was just really trying to get something back up, something new up for those who like to watch me make soap or learn how to make soap, but get some ideas for Halloween. And I'm so behind that I was just dying to get something up. So I said, okay, well, I'll just talk through the instructions. So hopefully, if I leave something out, please let me know. Real quick, while you see me doing this here, don't try this trick if you're not used to using a knife. It's tricky, and you have to be very careful and cautious. It's hard to see there, but my fingers are not coming up and around that mold. They're staying below the surface, so I'm not going to cut off the fingertips. I need those, and so hopefully you will either have some experience with that, or maybe you're better at pouring than me. I do have another way of removing the soap from these type of embeds, and I show you in one of my embed videos. I do have an embed, at least one embed video that goes into detail about how to do this, how to remove them effectively without breaking these little legs. And you see I'm showing you, but I go into more detail in the video about embeds. But I'm pulling, if you notice, I'm moving the mold away from the soap. I'm bending it back away from the item. So the spiders are done. I am unmolding some bats here, and I had already unmolded some little trees. Those are for a later soap. So I apologize that, but I just kind of had to do a bunch of stuff at once. And so I did the spiders and the bats and the trees at the same time. But I'm only using the spiders today. I am starting to fill these little cups with the colors I'm going to use. And I'm just going to give you a kind of a quick rundown of what they are. They are all from Mad Micas. And yes, I am affiliated with Mad Micas. And I will leave a link. If you purchase from my link, you will be charged the same price you normally would be, but I get a 10% kickback. So it helps me out, and you're not charged any more than you normally would be, even on sale items. So consider doing that, purchasing through my link. It definitely helps me out. I don't use Mad Micas products because of the affiliate link. I use them because they're my favorite. So I do use a few others here and there, but they are my go-to. And I prefer them. That's why I wanted to have an affiliate link with them, because their colors are great. They're soap safe. They're skin safe. They're very reliable. You're not going to have a lot of strange morphing colors that have anything to do with the mica itself. It's also ethically sourced, and you'll find if you do some research into it, not all companies' micas are ethically sourced. So you might want to look into that. So the colors I used, I will put links to each of them. That was Sour Lemons, which is no longer available, but you might try Bright Yellow Raincoat. That's a great alternative to that. And you can adjust it a little if you want to alter it a little bit. You can always play around with your shades. And I also, well, right now, what I'm stirring in here is Radioactive, which is a neon pigment. And you'll see me really mushing it around. Anything that is a pigment rather than a mica is going to be more difficult to stir. I'm stirring all of these into, oh yeah, that's just me showing my frustration with almost spilling things and dropping things, because I do this a lot. So that was my little hand gesture of frustration. Any pigment you want to mush kind of up a little bit and stir longer than a regular mica. So I did use several pigments here. You saw me putting the powder into the little cups, and I did Sour Lemons, like I said. I did Flotation Device, which is a neon pigment, and I did Pumpkinhead, which is a mica, and then I did the Radioactive, which is a neon pigment, and I also used Lush Green. There's a couple, I think there's a couple more that I used, and I'll holler those out as I use them, because it's too hard for me to remember and go back and figure out what I used without seeing it. I'll remember as I see it. Anyway, so the colors are mixed up ahead of time. Some of them. I don't mix them all up ahead of time, because if you do that, the alcohol that I disperse it in can dissipate a little too much. Dissipate's not the word I'm looking for. Evaporate, that's it. So it can evaporate a bit too much, too quickly if you're waiting for long periods of time. And I do have some layering here, and allow the soap to set up in between some of the layers, which means they're sitting for a while. How long really depends on where you are and your environment, temperature in your house, etc. Even the humidity can alter how long it takes the soap to set up. So it's a little difficult for me to tell you exactly how long to wait. You want to wait till it's set up. For these, they don't have to be completely set up, but you really want a thick skin. So just be aware of that. You don't want anything moving underneath that top layer when you pour on the next layer. And we'll talk more about that as I layer. But again, I am using the premium crystal clear from Crafter's Choice. That is, as I said before, my soap of choice for a clear base for sure. It's the clearest I've used, and it's the easiest to work with, in my opinion, because it has a lower melting point. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. I failed to mention when talking about the spiders, or at least I think I did, that you want to pour those at a little bit higher temperature than your melting point. Not a lot, a couple of degrees should do it. It just makes it easier for the soap to disperse into the little nooks and crannies of the spider legs. Also, alcohol can help that. You can either spray it first and then pour, or pour it and then spray. Either way, it helps the soap to move into the crannies. Forgive me if I repeat myself, because I don't know. I can't remember if I said it or not, because this is my second take, so please forgive me. You have 2 small cups here with the lush green and with radioactive, and I poured about an ounce and a half in each, maybe a little bit less. And I do end up using all of that, but not all at once. I come back and use a little bit more radioactive later on, but I'm just swirling them. The temperature I'm swirling them at is probably about 120. I let it cool off a little, enough to where it's not going to completely mush together. That you don't want the colors to completely blend. You could pour lower than that if you want. Probably can still pour this one at 118, maybe even as I think 115 is going to start setting up. And again, depends on the temperature in your house. I think I did it at about 120. All of this was flying by the seat of my pants, because guess what? I couldn't find my thermometer when I was unpacking my stuff. I did just move, and so this was the first real full soap I've made in video since I moved to Iowa. So the temperatures are different, and I can't find my stuff in my boxes, and so many different problems going on that have kept me from filming. But not having my thermometer was a big one, and it really threw me for a loop. But I think I have enough experience in me to start to be able to kind of feel what the temperature is by feeling the outside of my bucket. That's only because I've been doing it for quite some time now, 4 years. And I always feel the side of my cup to see kind of what it's feeling like. If it's too hot, then I check the temperature. If it feels too cool, I check the temperature. I usually check the temperature anyway, but through that process, I've kind of started to feel what it's like. So I let that, as you see, I let that little swirl, that I didn't swirl a lot, just a little bit. I only poured that tiny amount into my 5x5 mold. It's a flat mold. It doesn't go very high. It's, oh gosh, what do you call it? I can't think of the name of the type of mold, but I will eventually. And I let it mostly set up while I was mixing up the other colors and then reheating the soap. And I'm going to do the same, well, sort of the same. I'm going to do my marbling technique, which is something I created a while back. It's a different way to marble or swirl than, say, the acorn swirl or something like that. I layer a variety of colors and disperse. I disperse some of the colors into clear, so you can kind of see the layer beneath it. The color is always going to show from the bottom because I'm always blending it with clear. So here you go. There's a tiny bit of clear. I'm pouring that kind of hot because I want it to stick to the previous layer. I did also spritz a tiny bit of alcohol. That also helps. Don't go crazy with the alcohol with that, because you will prevent it from sticking instead of allowing it to adhere if you use too much. I really recommend using a light mister. So the yellow you see me dispersing there, the sour lemons, that is only mixed in alcohol. I didn't add soap to it until a few minutes or a few seconds from now. I will. Because I didn't like it. It wasn't, sometimes I've used a color with just alcohol and it really makes a great effect. But I think my fatal flaw in that was I didn't add a little bit of titanium dioxide, and I usually do when I'm doing this technique. It makes it disperse differently in the soap and in the alcohol. So Now, this is with the added soap, and I have a little bit more control over where it goes. I think it was a little more of a foggy spread of that yellow than I wanted it to be. So you see how I'm fixing it here is by adding clear. Adding the clear is also part of how I marble. I'm using the clear soap to move the colors around. And then sometimes I come back with a stick like you see here, just a little silicone stick, little stirring stick. You can find them I found mine on Amazon. People use them a lot for resin art. So that is a good area to look in on Amazon in your resin materials and your resin tools, resin making tools. So that's all you see me doing here is adding. While I'm adding more clear, I want to go back up and tell you that I am using apple fragrance, just pretty simple Wellington fragrance company, and it's apple. And then I added a touch of winter candy apple just to make it a little unique. And here is, I let that layer set up with the orange and the yellow, and now I'm adding more clear. So I always let the previous layer set up pretty well. It could still be a little bit soft. You just, like I said, you don't want it runny at all. You have to have a thick skin. Not a thin skin won't work because you'll just start moving the soap again when you pour the clear. Now this orange that I'm using now is Pumpkinhead, and it is a mica. And I know in the images here, at least on my computer, it is looking like a red. It's really not. It's a true orange. It's a little bit more on the red side when you're comparing it to Flotation Device, which is a really pale gold, not pale gold, bright gold. It looks like a flotation device. I don't know what else to say. But I'm pouring that. There's soap mixed in with all of the colors from here out except for the Sparkle Sunshine, which I used toward the end. So I'm taking a chance mixing orange and green. If you don't know that, it's very easy to get a nice muddy brown from mixing orange and green, just like mixing, if you were to mix orange and purple. There's so many different ways you can come up with brown. But the orange and green typically will create a muddy brown, so you have to be kind of careful. As you notice, I didn't put a lot of this in this layer. If the orange and the yellow were to mix, it wouldn't really be a big deal. But in this one, I put a little bit more of that radioactive in because I wanted it closer to the top layer to make it stand out a little bit more. And you'll see here, I go to swirl with this little stick, and if it moves, if it looks like a little bit of a web or a little bit of a tiny layer on top starting to form, I stop. If you keep moving that, you end up with a big hot mess. So now I'm just sprinkling on a little bit of that Sparkle Sunshine, which is an amazing color. It is a mica, but it's glitter-like mica is what it's referred to, and it is definitely soap and skin and environmentally safe. And then I go back and add a little more clear. Now here is where I can tell you that I got a few bubbles, and part of that is I was going to either end up with bubbles or possibly make brown, because when you squirt with alcohol, when you spritz it, it can make the colors move, and I was afraid to make the colors move into one another too much. So I erred on the side of letting there be a couple of bubbles. Even though I saw them and wanted to spritz them, I didn't. So it took a little bit of holding back on that one, I guess. Self-control, I guess, is a better way to put it. And yes, I am cutting my spiders in half right now. I don't cut all of them in half. I just cut a few of them in half. The look I wanted to go for was an entire layout of spiders everywhere. And I could have just put a couple of spiders in each bar. I'm only cutting this into 4 bars because it is a 5x5 mold from Brambleberry. And I don't know. I didn't want it to look too neat. 2 spiders or 3 spiders on this bar, 3 spiders on that bar. I wanted it to look like a whole layout of spiders. So I think you'll see by the way I start off is I do want to make sure each bar has at least one whole spider. So that's what I'm starting with. And yes, I did pour pretty hot clear over that so that it would adhere to the layer beneath it. And then I spritzed it with a tiny bit of alcohol and start shoving the spiders in quickly. Now, you also will notice soon I'm going to add more clear because I also want the spiders will need to be covered in clear, and I didn't want a layer to set up in between because then you're just asking for more possible bubbles and for the layer to show where I've added the spiders. So here you see me putting in the half spiders, and I think you'll get the look that I'm going for as you see it looks like there's a spider off of the scene. I don't know if that makes sense. Half of the spider is, as if it continues. So my little trick that you'll see, and it's not just my trick, but I've seen others use it, but a tip for you when you're adding embeds like this, and this is also in my other embed video, which I think involves mermaids. The spritzing here as I pour, I'm spritzing right after. You see that? I'm pouring on the spider, which really I should have poured on the background instead of the spider. Another tip, if you're pouring hot soap that you want to adhere, don't pour on the embed, pour on the area around the embed and let it float over. But again, I'm still getting back into things. But nothing really melted because you see me spritzing immediately after I pour it. Now, I'm not going crazy with the alcohol. You don't see me spritz, 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 spritz. You just need a little spritz, and it cools it off immediately and didn't melt anything. I had to guess what temperature I was pouring some of these things at, and I would say with this one, this clear layer, when I first poured it on before I added the spiders, it was probably about 129, and then cooled a little bit as I went, maybe 130 at the most. And then, of course, I let it set up fully before I did this. A lot of people misunderstand and think I'm removing it immediately or adding layers immediately. I just don't want you to have to sit there and watch soap dry. That seems kind of silly. So the little spritzing I'm doing as I pulled the sides from the soap just helps it to unmold a little bit easier. It's more of an important tip when you have a great big deep mold like a loaf mold, but this one is just a little shallow pan mold. I know that's not the word. I can't figure it out to save my life right now. It's on the tip of my tongue, but anyway, there it is, all unmolded. And then as you see, I'm going to pull up my knife in a moment and cut it up into 4 pieces. I'd say 4 even pieces, but that didn't work out real well. They're mostly even. They're mostly even pieces. So I'm not the best at cutting. I just do my best, and that's the way it is. It is a handmade item. It is soap. If I'm using a loaf soap, I like to use Uncle Andy's, but when I'm making a big flat soap, again, can't think of the word to save my life, then I like to use a double-handled cheese knife. And I also like to use that to cut up the big blocks of soap because having the 2 handles allows you to put a little bit more pressure from the top without hurting your shoulders, without hurting your back as much. At least to me, it makes it much easier work than if you're trying to use some big chef's knife or something. So, double-handled cheese knife. Found mine on Amazon. Don't remember the brand. Easy to find them, though, at a variety of price levels. I did not get a real expensive one, and I still love mine. It's a great tool to have if you are a soap maker, particularly for melt and pour soap. I'm marking these at a weird spot. I just want you to know that this isn't my normal tape measure, and the 3 and the 2 and the 1 are hidden underneath that little handy dandy little part that you pull out, the little handle on the end. So I measured from 3 to 8. So it's still 5 inches, but that's the way I had to do it for this. So I'm sorry if that looks confusing. It's 5 inches. And so I cut at the 2.5 mark, but not what the tape did not say 2.5. I just measured 2.5 inches in and made little marks on each side because they are square. It's a square soap and it's a square mold. You can do them even like that. You could probably come up with some other configuration if you wanted a different soap, but I wanted some little squares. And that's what I did. Trick with when you're cutting something like this, push on the soap as you're kind of wiggling the knife out. You don't want to, you can push, you can twist. Either one of those helps it. It will stick to the knife. That's really any knife you use. I do prefer to twist it off, but in this instance, I didn't want, I probably didn't wait long enough. I did, but I mean, I was taking a little bit of a chance there. But you still see I'm twisting to get them off of the knife because they're sticking. But I am very aware of where my fingers are, and I recommend that you are also aware if you use a knife like this at all times. It is an extremely sharp blade. Now, normally, if you know me, I do a lot of beveling of my art soaps. I don't bevel every soap, but most of them I do. I have been at least. And these, they had an edge that needed to kind of be removed, and you see me kind of pulling at it a little bit right here. I go back and clean it up a little bit later with a cloth, but I changed my mind on the beveling. One of the reasons, if I don't bevel, it's because I'm afraid that I might somehow remove too much of the image. It changes the angle of the way that the light comes in, and sometimes you lose part of the image that's there. You're not seeing things. It's getting fuzzy because Mr. Soaps and Such was good enough to get the camera right for me. So get it all set up so that you could see it up close, because we have to change the distance of the camera and adjust all that good stuff. And he's good at that. So here you are. This, while you're seeing them, the layers look so cool when you turn it to the side. I think that looks really neat. Anyway, while you're enjoying the look of these neat little scary spiders, just to let you know why I moved to Iowa, if you don't know already. First of all, I lived in Florida, and it was getting kind of pricey just to live there. So that, in combined with finding out my dad had cancer, I wanted to be up, and we knew it was terminal, and I wanted to be near him as long as I could and help out my brother and my sister, who also live up here in Iowa, and we're helping to care for him, and also run a few different businesses here. So they kind of needed help, and I left. I left Florida and got up here, and Mr. Soaps and Such and I also live now on my dad's property with my brother and my sister, all in different little domiciles. But we're crossing our fingers that we make it through the first winter. I am not a cold type person at all. So you'll see me struggle with how to make Milton Purse soap without it freezing on me, and different little things. I have some ideas of things I want to try, and I hope you'll stick with me and see how the first winter turns out. We have so many cool things planned for you. We're going to teach Mr. Soaps and Such how to soap. We're going to take some field trips. We're going to do all kinds of really fun things. And I just want you to know that I really appreciate you watching my video. I hope you'll come back and see what else we have in store for you. I do have a few more Halloween ones coming up very soon. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye.